All right, so it seems like we're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our panel discussion on generative UI design approach, where the interfaces adapts in real time based on user intent, user data, user request, etc. So with me today is Hao Sheng. He is the CEO at Chatsimple, where his team builds AI native conversational UIs. Khyati Brahmbhatt, she is a lead product manager at Apty and deeply interested in Gen UI and partners with different founders who already implement the concept of Gen UI in their products. And Yuriy Mykhasyak, the CEO at Cieden, where he helps SaaS teams design complex AI-powered systems. So, welcome everyone again. Before we start actually asking questions and answering the questions, I'd like to introduce to you the table of contents for today so that you know what to be prepared for. So the first topic we're going to talk about is how Gen UI shifts the design focus. Then we'll talk about its impact on accessibility and inclusion. How does it change UX and development roles? The ethical concerns it raises, obviously, since it's AI. The brand consistency and how it challenges, the product teams. What's next for generative UI? And obviously, we will have a Q&A session. So for the Q&A session, we will have around 15 minutes. If you have any questions, you can just leave them in the chat. If you have questions to, just everyone, all the speakers, just leave them in the chat. If you have a question to a specific speaker, please mention the name of a speaker so that we can ask the speaker directly. Yep, so I guess we're good to go. So the first question is, how does generative UI shift the focus from traditional interface design to outcomes design? And Khyati, I'd like to ask you first. In your article about the generative UI, you said that generative UI is about shifting from designing screens to designing outcomes. So what does the shift mean in practice for product teams?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Alina, first of all. And hi, everyone. I think it's a great question, and it's a very foundational question for us to address because honestly, it forces the mindset shift because now we are not designing the static interfaces anymore. We are designing the systems that adapt based on what user is trying to do. So the moment you stop thinking about the screens and you start thinking about the outcomes, as you rightly said, the entire process changes. It basically flips the question from what this screen should look like to what the user is trying to do right now. And that shift from interface to intent is where the real value is. So now we are no longer designing the layouts. Now we are designing the outcomes. So this also means that we are optimizing. Until now, we were optimizing for clicks, but now we will be optimizing for like completion, clarity, or adaptability. This is a perfect example of what outcomes might look like. But again, the outcomes are all as good as we define them. So this is where the intent modeling becomes more and more critical. And if your system cannot detect the intent clearly, it will just generate or over-generate the UI and under-deliver. So that's why defining the right outcome is more important going forward.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing these insights. I would like also to ask how, I know that you also launched Expertise AI, and Expertise AI kind of uses this concept of Gen UI already. So how does your product team approach design in this situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Hao. Thanks, Alina, to have me here. So Chatsimple, in the last year of Chatsimple, when we run Chatsimple, we figure out one biggest issue was the chat interfaces. People don't like to type. People are more used to scrolling and clicking. To give you an example, I can scroll through TikTok for hours, but I cannot talk for hours or typing for hours. It will be very hard for me unless you pay me, right? So So like what kind of user behavior is more natural? Like this leads us to think about like it's not only the conversational UI, it's also the interface it matters. Like how can you engage with the AI without have to type or speak all the time? So that leads us to think about expertise, which is a Gen UI. We add Gen UI into our conversation flow to understand how you can interact with AI without typing, and with minimal effort, you can start understand like the business and understand the product. In our opinion, Gen UI is an outcome. Gen UI is also you are designing an experience. The most important part is the experience like user are getting with your business or with your product.
Great, thank you so much. And Yuriy, I'd also like to ask you, since you work with a lot of different teams and different products, what do you think are products and users ready for this? Are they ready for Gen UI?
I think like we underestimate how much of generative UI we already have, because even any AI chat is already generative UI in a way, because text is also part of interface. And if you use Canvas that generates some reports, or you use tool like chat with database, chat to database, yeah, when you can have live reports generated from live queries to the database, you see that like toolset is already here, but we like people are still not knowing what kind of powerful tools we have in our products. Like I am searching internet monthly for new inspiration how Gen AI can be used in different products, but we are still lacking even like nice patterns to see how to actually implement it. And that's awesome time for designers, product managers who can actually invent new experiences that were never possible before. So it's a great time, and I believe like everything is happening in intersections. Like so, it's not chat interfaces, because somebody could say, okay, this is what they can see some widgets generated inside of the chats, because these are the demos. You can see the weather widget or map widget, like 90% of demos will be there. But it's also about adaptability of the all interfaces. So I would say there are 5 levels, or like even more levels, depending how you would want to classify of Gen UI. The simplest one, the easiest one, people integrated on like on-demand features, when you can say, write me the message, or like make it shorter, nicer, and you would also say that's already Gen UI. But then the most complex part is when you have actually generated code and layout and everything that helps you to solve the problem. Maybe once in a year, but this is actually the best interface for you. I always have this example. For example, you are going to the vacation and you want to delegate your task to the team. So this is only once in a year. When you go to vacation, you want to see who is available, who is the best match for this type of project to assign. We don't have these interfaces because nobody will spend time to generate this type of user interfaces and teach people how to use it. But with AI, hopefully you will be able to do it.
All right. All right. Okay. So I think right now it's time to go to the next question. And the next one is about the accessibility and the challenges of accessibility in the concept of Gen UI. So while adaptive interfaces, they provide this really deep sense of personalization for users, it can also be pretty challenging for some of them, especially for those who are using the readers and keyboard navigators, because the interface always changes. So, Khyati, from a product manager's perspective, how can teams plan for the accessibility for this specific situation, when the interfaces are so dynamic?
Yeah, I agree with you, Alina. And readiness is the only answer, because Gen UI has a lot of power and to be the most inclusive interface we can ever build. But also only if we can have proper constraints built in from the very start, from the very beginning. Because if we don't have the right constraints put in from the beginning, the flexibility can also become fragmentation. So for example, generative systems might shift the layouts dynamically, because depending upon the adaptability and the logic that we have put in. But unless you are checking it against the screen reader's compatibility, the interaction flow, you're making things harder and not easier. So the accessibility cannot be just a layer on top of it after generation, or it cannot be just the afterthought once you have created this generation logic. It has to be part of the generation engine itself. So it needs to be modeled as a rule and not as a checklist later on. Because just think about it, just because AI can generate infinite variations, it does not mean that they are usable by everyone, right? So you need to be mindful about applying this accessibility rules from the beginning itself. So right before you start thinking about the UI components and how you want to create that experience for the user, you have to start thinking about the accessibility also.
Okay, thank you so much. Yuriy, since you manage a lot of designers and you're already helping them implementing AI into their practice, what is your perspective on this question? How can designers approach the accessibility issues for Gen UI?
This is my favorite question about AI, because the first day I got access to the GPT-4, that was my experiments with code. Okay, it can write code. Okay, let's see how adaptive interfaces could be built, like how it can change, for example, help for the users. There are people who have different wording for the copy, yeah, who needs more text. Like we always discussing with our team, like with marketing team, do we need to put a lot of text on a website or just some basic bullets for people to see what we are doing? And the same with, for example, CRM documentation. Like because usually accessibility is something about like contrasts, maybe audio interface or something like that, but it's much more. Even like complexity of the interface, depending on the age of the background of the person who is more expert, less expert. These features were not possible previously, but now it's super easy to add audio control for the interface. It's super easy to adapt the documentation for very specific needs, and it's already adaptability for accessibility, yes. And also, like I would envision, so there are a lot of new technologies coming to websites, like NL Web announced by Microsoft, or a lot of AI features integrated to the Chrome browser by Google announced yesterday. So it will be possible for us, perhaps, I hope, in the future, to read information from the browser about like what kind of requirements the person actually needs, and adapt the interface for them based on their accessibility requirements. Because there is interesting thoughts that we failed with accessibility for most of our products, because if we try to make them accessible, it may hurt UX for lots of people who want something look in very specific ways. But it also can't be accessible for everybody, because there are so many different things for accessibility we have to check. And now with personalized user experience, when we can generate very specific components for everybody, like personalized ones, finally, we can have 3-4 times more work for designers and product managers to cover these cases. So people who are afraid that AI will take their job shouldn't be afraid, because finally we can have time to focus and adapt every interface for every human on the planet with help of AI, obviously. Yeah, so I think not to focus on accessibility just like we are used to think about that, about contrast and something like that, but understand it in a wider way.
Right, thank you. How I'm really curious about your experience, especially the experience with Chatsimple and Expertise AI. When you were creating this concept of Expertise AI, creating the interfaces based on the user's output, how did you address this challenge of accessibility? What actions did you make in advance, to prevent the accessibility issues?
That's a very good question. I think overall, like when you talk about UI, UX, it's not just the visual part. Sometimes it's also the audio part. Like, can you communicate? In general, like we love technology, we love AI because it gives us a much intuitive way to engage. One is a text, one is voice. And lots of time we feel like voice is also a big part of making the website accessible, because lots of visually impaired people would need voice interaction instead of just showing them. So that's one part of what we built in early on into Chatsimple and now on expertise as well. So voice interaction will be able to allow you to use voice to navigate through the website, to show you the part that you're really interested in, and use voice to guide you, to help you to understand the product. That's one part of our offering. And overall, when it comes to visual, how do we change the UI to adapt to everyone's needs? We feel like this is much easier than navigating through the entire website. Modern day B2B websites sometimes contains thousands of pages. You have blog, case study, product, pricing, and all these like the hundreds of pages, thousands of pages. How do you find the right content for you? And you are just one industry in like maybe 12 industry they serve. So that has been a challenge, and that has been from day one what we're trying to solve. The accessibility of the website. How can we leverage generative UI, generative AI to solve like how do you match a person with the information? Yeah, so I think generative UI is going to make the website and the business more accessible, not only from a visual standpoint, but also audio, voice standpoint. You will allow more people to engage with your business. So that's our take. Of course, I want to say the opposite side. This is just the beginning of that. We just start to see company start adopting generative UI. I think there are lots of design challenges because UI, one thing that we faced is when we look at generated UI, sometimes the text and the background are not in the right color that we wish that stands out. So sometimes the text can be hard to read because AI, that's the limitation of AI. It can generate HTML, it can generate CSS, but it cannot guarantee these CSS and HTML are good for accessibilities. So as the AI model gets more and more advanced, we believe these kind of issue and we start to address it on a code level or on the prompt level, we will be able to see more accessible website design and a nicer website design as well through generative UI.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for such practical insights. The next question we'd like to cover is about how the concept of Gen UI changes the team roles. And Yuriy, you already kind of got into this topic a little bit, yeah, that, AI doesn't take our jobs. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on how this concept will change the role of designers.
That's a nice question. Thank you. Like, I guess you will agree, and everybody will agree that designers should shift as their mindset, more like a problem solver who was still like pixel mover. He now should understand that there are like not too much left for doing that. AI is pretty good in creating interfaces using existing templated frameworks like Cieden and a lot of similar. But there are a lot of work now to better understand users and to adapt to very specific types of users you have in your product. And also working on a component level, like all this kind of micro interactions, minimalistic things that maybe previously we didn't have time for that. So here at our agency at Cieden, we want to split designers into specific roles. One part of the team will be focused more on strategy and research and talking with users, understanding what we actually want to build for them, what kind of value and impact we can provide for them. Because more and more apps will be more like we see this trend, like everything apps, because you have entry point, like whatever, chat, voice interface, whatever. And then there are so many easy to bring integrations with MCP servers, agent-to-agent protocol. So almost every app will be able to talk with any other applications, and like hopefully your application will be the center of interaction with everything else. But there is also a large part, how would you differentiate as a brand? Because everybody says, okay, it's very easy to build the software now. yes, like ask ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini to write the software in 2 years, and it will just go online, click on all the buttons, research everything, and build you a very nice copy of existing CRM system, for example. But it doesn't mean that everybody will do it, and it also doesn't mean that every software will be the same. Yeah, so there will still be a lot of need to build the brand, to build the very specific new interactions that nobody still invented, and it's really hard to copy. And all this kind of innovations has been done by somebody, and especially in UI part. You see, for example, how material design changes. Like Google announced material design version 3, the newer upgrade for that, and it's more and more expressive. Yes, it's adding more and more features to not become boring, because like we don't want to use the same templates. So for designers, we ask them to decide, okay, there are some designers who are very good in craft. They have to move to creating of these components, design systems in code, like maybe taking some part of the responsibility to help developers with having all this kind of generative UI components that can be reused later on with different experience. It doesn't matter if it's used with generative UI or it's used in some parts of the interface already prepared by developers. And other people should move now as fast as possible how to use AI to do research, to understand people, because everybody should add this kind of toolset to their work. Ideally, at the end, everybody will be able to do both parts, like and strategy and craft on this little level of micro interactions. But for now, I guess the smartest for designers, it would be to decide if you're going to the strategy, learn about what people actually need, what are their goals. If you're into craft, learn how to create this kind of components, experiment. There are so many templates already to use, and you don't need to be a coder to start creating generative UIs already.
All right, thank you. Khyati, as a PM, what is your take on this topic?
I think it's an amazing question, and I'm already seeing the shift already. I think it goes back again to the users, because I'll take the Instagram's example again. We watch a lot of reels, right? And we keep scrolling, and we have, why reels exist today is because the user's attention span is getting narrow. The same with the other interfaces also. Now the user's expectation is also going very, very high. They don't want to spend a lot of time in achieving their goal or what they are trying to do with the interface. They want to come in, they expect the interfaces to have the context, to understand what they are looking for, and then they behave accordingly. So now, as a product manager also, or a product designer, or even a product developer, everybody has to start thinking about what user is trying to do, and in the very narrow span of their attention, how we can make sure that the user is able to achieve that goal or the outcome. So now everybody has to start thinking very strategically from the user intent perspective. And that's why, rather than creating the designs or user journeys or user flows, what everybody will start designing is they will start defining these guardrails. They will start defining, if the user is not able to achieve, what is my fallback pattern? If we are trying to make the interface adaptive, how the UI components, based on what rules it should be generated. So generation rules also should be defined. So now everybody will start thinking about the strategy towards achieving the user's intent, rather than creating the static user flows. That's what I feel will be the difference. And we have already talked about how even writing the user stories will change. Now there is no particular persona that we are trying to design the interface for. So the user stories will no longer be, hey, as a person or as a buyer, I want to do this. It will be more outcome driven. To achieve this outcome, this is what we are supposed to do. That's how the success metric also will look like. So that's where I see the shift and the change.
Okay, thank you so much. So the next pretty big question is about the ethical issues which this concept arises. So how, since the ethical questions are following the AI all over, on all of the roads and stuff, how did you approach the ethical concerns about the the information, the data of users you use. What is this design right now? Since it's kind of like also user-made design, is it user's possession or it's in a brand possession? And how to keep trust when everything is changing and the user might get confused. So what is your take on the ethical issues and what is your experience with this?
Yeah, this is a very good question, and there's no silver bullet to the ethical question. It's a very complicated question. There are a few parts. If we break it down, one is it who owns the data that the engagement user have. The other one is how much information can we disclose on the user side to the business or to the brand. What is considered appropriate, and at the end of the day, like whether user have consent to withdraw their interaction or withdraw their information from the brand and from with the company. I think these are every topic is a big topic. But I would talk about one big part that what we believe the future would hold. We believe the future would hold, like if you think about checkout, user checkout. Now you check out, go to your website, you want to buy something, you go to checkout page, you start payment. You don't typically put your credit card on, give it to the website, although that's typically what you do, like maybe 5 to 10 years ago when we don't have a good payment infrastructure. Instead, you give your credit card or you store your credit card with Stripe, and Stripe would actually handle the payment without disclosing the credit card to the business. We think there is a future where you own the data, you go to a website or you go to a business, you can choose, okay, I want to give you my personal information as the process time or as this interaction, but I want to at some point be able to withdraw it. That means I can give you the information, but you don't have it. And then later on, when I withdraw, just like payment, I don't know your credit card. I cannot like know and share your credit card information afterwards. It will all be a third party, could be a third party that handles the user interaction, and then at the end we don't store that within the business. So that concept of a third party doing a trusted third party doing the interaction for you is something like I hope we can achieve, so users don't have to disclose that. And the added benefit for that is you can give your information to AI agent. In the future, AI agent would act on your behalf, but they don't know how much of your information they can disclose. Can they disclose your address? Can they disclose your email? Can they disclose your occupation? Maybe to some level you're not comfortable with. But with a trusted third party, if we can handle this, that means the business don't see the or they see an anonymized interaction, but they don't know who you are. I think this is yet to be built, but I see a future where you feel very, very safe going online, giving your AI agent your information, and then it can go check with different business and have the peace of mind your information is not distributed all around the internet, because that's an issue right now. Like your information are resold by some, you don't even know what cookie or whatever you consent to, right? Like lots of time you just click accept, and then you don't even know like you accept what kind of cloth. Yeah, so I think there will be a brighter future for the privacy and for the ethical use of data, and we are probably heading there.
Okay, thank you so much, Yuriy. What is your opinion about this topic, about the ethical issues and how to address them?
I think for now we are moving. So thank you, Hao, for sharing your idea. We are moving in a bit different direction. That large players are taking that already have a lot of information. For example, I don't know if you have ability to see yesterday's Google I/O conference, but they've shared their vision and they're actually building the solution like for you that your agent at Google will have all information about yourself, because lots of people are already using Gmail, all the Google documents, Google search. So there are like all of the ecosystem, like YouTube, everything is there. So they know a lot of things about you, and it's already gathered for you. And now when you start searching with AI mode in Google, it will already use all your previous searches to understand what is relevant for you, what you are typically searching, what do you actually need. And I don't think that just large players would be happy to share this information with others. And for you as a user, it would be more convenient if you already, for example, have Android phone and you are in Google ecosystem, or you have iPhone and you are in Apple ecosystem. It would be much easier for you. They already have your information, so you would trust them more. So for other players, it would be much harder to be this third party. Usually, it will be like what kind of device you have, in which hardware and software ecosystem you are. They will have all of your information and will share only minimum information with other software vendors that's necessary to complete the transaction. Like their shopping experience they showed, your agent will parse all the shops, find the best price, and will just give you his own interface to complete transaction. Just only pay and buy. You will never see the shop yourself. What kind of interface is there? So it's a tricky question about ethics. Yeah, when all the teams that built this e-commerce business, now it doesn't matter at all, because people will never visit them. Their AI bot will generate another interface that may be good. Maybe there will be no bad dark patterns anymore, but you will have the buy now button that's generated for you by Google and not by Amazon, for example. So we will have so my main point is that we will need some regulations if you want like this data to be stored locally, for example, ability to control it on our side, because there is also a talk about tools like Perplexity, that everybody will use Google or Perplexity or something to search, but there is a hope that we will have local agents that will be able to do like use different APIs for search, and will not share so much information about you, because we'll just switch different APIs for each search. Nobody will know everything what you're searching, for example. And if in the long run, I guess, yeah, there will be some rules that will help us to have this information for ourselves or easily control what is shared. For now, until we'll have this regulation, it will be really hard.
All right, so I think our panel finally justifies the part discussion. And where else than ethical question? You know, everybody hates ethical questions, right? So Khyati, as a third party of this, what is your opinion?
I think what Yuriy and Hao said is very, very important. And we also see the user behavior and the user mindset shift also. You know, for a few years ago, I think we all were a little concerned about sharing our credit card information online or sharing any personal information online, because we thought everybody is reading and the data is being shared and everything. But now we are okay to share save passwords in Apple phones, or we are okay to share credit cards online and store it somewhere. So just like that, I think slowly and slowly everybody is also, you know, becoming okay with sharing more data, because they know that there are many guardrails also that are put in place. So as a product team also, when you are dealing with Gen UI and when you are implementing Gen UI, whether it is in a chat or whether it is your web interface or anything, all you have to keep in mind is the explainability. The user should be able to understand what they are interacting with and why. As long as they feel safe and they feel trusted, it's what makes sense. So anything that you are seeing or generating in terms of the Gen UI interface, as long as there is explainability factor, user should be able to feel safe interacting with it and sharing information with it.
Okay, thank you so much. So the next also kind of challenging question is how to keep brand consistency with the concept of Gen UI, you know, when interfaces are changing and stuff. So how you already kind of touched this topic by saying that sometimes you wanted it to be one color and then it's absolutely another color. So what would you advise to the product owners, you know, product founders that want to implement this concept into their product, how to keep brand consistency?
The brand consistency is interesting. Like every brand has its own style. There are ways to do it. Like I think one part is to have the AI learn your CSS, your brand style. What does it look like, and add to every generative AI like prompt your style, like specific style guideline. So make sure your output, the style, always consistent with your style. I would say that's still a very much state of the art, like what we are trying to get it right. There's no good way for it. Of course, you can also try to fine tune a model with like your CSS, your website style, and then have it learn there. I think in the future there will be two routes. One is we will have predefined component where the component style just match whatever your website style. The other way is we'll have fine-tuned model, which are learned all the style guideline, and whatever it produce, it will fit within your style guideline. I think that leaves a lot of, that'll create a new job potentially for UI UX designer. So instead of just give these style palettes, the guidelines, people who are able to teach AI like how to produce a style or how to make a deck with the style would be, there will be a new opportunity there definitely to for UI UX designer from standard like output to a more language based or more visual plus language based to teach AI, become a teacher for AI for the style guide. So in conclusion, I don't think there's a solved. It's not solved yet. We are, people and scientists are still looking at this field and try to understand how can we produce the consistent style, consistent also. The other thing is language. How do you make sure the language is produced also consistent with your marketing material, right? Like, so all these language consistency and style consistency in the future, I think can be taught to AI, but the exact like technical requirement or technical things are not have not been figured out yet.
Okay, thank you so much. Yuriy, from the perspective of person who work on a lot of different products and obviously need to keep brand consistency, how would you approach this challenge?
So like you have to decide like how much risk you would want to take. And there is not only like from brand perspective and UI perspective, but also about security and ethical and the jailbreaking. There's so many things you have to consider. So most of the players start small and they can use some marketing concepts how they plan to build the product in the future to sell it to the audience and investors. But on average, people tend to be safe, and you definitely start with a lot of human in the loop. And when you build some components, usually you use something like a Vercel AI SDK that has some guardrails to protect against breaking. So you already have React components that take JSON to visualize some data, and you have a lot of evals to check the JSON that comes from the generated LLMs, and they use usually the smartest LLMs possible, and then try to go down, maybe fine-tune to see what other modules will be also able to generate the content to create this kind of UI without failing, some alternative scenarios if there is a fail, what to do, maybe getting back to the smarter model if something fails, or maybe having some other types of like visualization, maybe just textual. There was very popular concept going through the internet how AI was trained to generate mail interface on the fly. And yeah, so also not overcomplicating. So the example everybody learned from this case, that sometimes interactive interface can be just text with clickable words, and it's like with minimum style. The less code for generating something, the better. The easiest is it's to control and to for LLM to not make mistakes. And also now we have a lot of agentic flows when you have very specialized agents for very specific tasks. So like if you build the system correctly, then you have specific agent to generate specific type of interface that is learned with teached with a lot of examples. So it has tool library for all this kind of widgets you will have to generate. So for now, what I hear, like with the latest models, it mostly works. People are still afraid to push too much, and obviously you have to have a lot of analytics because you want to see how people actually use this type of interfaces, and it's different. You can't just connect Google Analytics and say, okay, it works somehow, yeah. So this is also a huge area for designers or product managers. How are we going to work with analytics evaluations to see what works, what doesn't work with communication in chat interfaces, with communication with generated user interfaces, different components, even if it's inside of the chat, what actually works, what doesn't work, where did we need this type of visualization, or it was something that disrupted and make people angry. Why are you putting so many visual components? I just need an answer. Yeah, so toolset is still evolving, even just for all this type of evals, SDKs for developing, but it's catching up pretty fast. So I guess we have maybe 5-6 months left when there will be a very mature tool set, and we will have explosion of this type of interface.
All right. Thank you so much. So I think it's time for us to go to the next question, which is pretty big, and we're gonna, be kind of thorough readers right now a little bit, but from the more tech perspective. So what's next for Gen UI? So Khyati, I would like you to start with this question. What do you think is next for Gen UI? How do you see products approaching it, product teams approaching it? Will we have all of this Gen UI products all over the world or no?
Alina, are you sure you want me to go first, because it will be very hard to stop me after this. It's a really big question. But I will try to be very precise and keep my answers short. But as you know, right, with Gen UI, I think we are just getting started. We have a lot to cover. I know we are seeing that a lot of companies, a lot of teams are coming up with new concepts with Gen UI, and I still feel we have a lot to uncover. There are so many aspects in Gen UI. We still have to first uncover and then conquer also. And with that, I think slowly we will see the shift in terms of the design aspect. If you see, so first it starts with chat interfaces, the chat bot, how UI components come and adapt in the chat component. From there, we will also have it on the mobile applications, SaaS applications, and slowly it can evolve to ERP applications. This transition will basically need a lot of mindset shift in the product teams, also in the how we are designing or how we are envisioning the new product interfaces. Also, it will change. So just like few years ago, responsive designs reshaped the web application a decade ago, I think this generative design system will reshape the interface layer itself. Now, these interfaces, they won't just respond to clicks or inputs, but they will respond to basically context, intent, and the conversation that the user is having with the interface. So I think very soon I see the product teams building for the intent-based interfaces. And this mindset will basically shift from, shipping the UI, running the design sprints, to basically shaping the adaptive systems going forward. And as I always say, the next future for generative UI is basically multimodal, where the UI is basically interacting with voice and also the agentic action. They will all converge at the same time. I think that's the future we will be here to see very soon.
Thank you so much. Hao, what do you think? How do you envision the future of Gen UI?
This is such a big topic. If we want to see the future, we may want to look at the past, when internet just come to birth. Like the first application is emailing. Military institute and academia institute, they email each other. That at that time it feels magical, right? Like you receive an email the first time, not a telegram. And if you ask people back then, like what the internet would be in 20 years, they would say like, we will have better email. We'll have email that allow you to transfer voice. We'll have email that allow you to send pictures. We'll have email that allow you to send videos. That would be amazing. So if you have a linear thinking, that's how things would progress. But I think after 20 years, 30 years, we see the internet is very different from just emailing. Like we have like this online webinar. We have internet, like all the web pages, all the businesses. Internet are much more than just emailing. So I think we are with conversational UI. I think it's type of emailing, like chatbot. You email chatbot email you back. Like if you can think that way, like. And the generative UI is truly like what web browser allow us to do. Like we can go to a website, see all the web page content. We can work on SaaS tools that's like help us with our productivities. We see all the marketing campaign ads, right? Personalized feed. So I think what's that version for the AI or for the generative UI is really the question. Is really the future, right? Like a UI that adapt to you, still look like a website, but it's in real time that adapt to your needs and understand who you are. Uh, a, a feed that feeds you, like just the news you are interested in, an AI that you can interact and at the same time learn more from you. These adaptive, personalized UI would be, in general, the future. So I think there will be three phases. One, the first phase is before AI. We have website like a website, thousands of pages. App look like an app. Then there will be the second stage where website you slap AI on it. It could be a chat interface. It could be a input bar. You talk to it. It will help you to change the website, help you to change the app. The third phase is websites still look like website nowadays, but it's all personalized. App still look like an app nowadays, but the moment you open, it knows what you're trying to achieve and help you to find the minimum path to achieve that. Of course, interactions like text and talk would be additional to that, but it won't be something like that has to happen. The interaction should be like what I said: scroll, click, and swipe. That's all you need. Yeah, so I'm super excited. We are going into the second phase and a little bit into the third phase. Apps still look like an app. Websites still look like a website. Yeah, that's my take.
I have something to add. I was prototyping a lot of like vibe coding, a lot of systems, because this is where everything goes, and our profession as designers and managers is also moving to this. So I have strong belief that everybody becomes a manager in the future of AI agents. Yeah, so like you need to give tasks. It's not much job will be left for very specific detailed craft, but like letting know what you have to build, what you have to do, what tasks are there, and like making decisions, that's really important. So more and more interfaces will be focusing on decision making and approving some things and gathering the information. So I'm experimenting more now, like that you will have application as a call with your manager that reports to you and provides you some details and ask you for approvals for different ways. So ideally at the end, your app will be a green light button, like saying everything is okay, don't touch anything, your business, your product is running perfectly well, we do everything for you. But maybe that's a boring future. But like if you talk about something where it will land in 50 years. But before that, it will be like when we are going to the agentic future, you'll have more like human to human conversations. But even now, like if you have calls with some team members, like from finance, from any other department, usually how it looks like is if one-on-one, for example, you're opening some documents, you're working on that together, you are sharing the screen, you are discussing something and making decisions. So for business B2B approach, I believe that this is the way how gradually the software will evolve. from the technical perspective, we don't know how if we'll still will have a code, because there are some crazy ideas that there are some models that can generate video games already on the fly, and you can navigate the game with keyboard. So who knows? Maybe in 10 years, all the interfaces will be generated as a video feed, and we'll have no HTML and like React components, but we'll actually have components generated by different parts of the video on the fly. We can't know about that, and it doesn't matter much. What's matter, understanding how technology can solve the problems and how to adapt to what people need at the moment, and show them the interface where every pixel has a reason to exist and to solve the problems. Because and adapt, and that's very new from every perspective. How do you look at on that? Yeah. So thank you, Alina. I think we have covered all the questions.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I was absent for some time. When tech giants talk about tech and the tech decides to fail. Yep. So have any questions in chat sections for now, but maybe there will be some. Let's give a couple of minutes for some of the people just to remind them that you can ask questions. It's okay, we will answer. And while people are figuring out what they... Oh, so fast. Okay. So we have a question. We have a question from Jakub. So with over 21 million e-commerce sites globally, will platforms like WordPress, Shopify, and Webflow adapt to generative AI through plugins, or are we facing a global redesign wave where most sites will need to be re-architected around generative UI? So, who'd like to answer this question?
That's a very nice question, and it's really hard to say. I believe that these players will do whatever they can to stay relevant and to provide you tools to have generative UI on their platforms, because there are lots of pressure. Even like, as I mentioned previously, Google is trying to build AI agents that will be do shopping for you and like grab the images and everything from the website of the goods, and even will monitor prices for you and send you the message that's very good what you are looking for, adapted with your photo, like how you are going to look in this jacket, for example, and that's when the price is correct and everything is correct. So there is a huge challenge, and I think that these players have to fight hard to stay relevant. There is new technology protocols announced by Microsoft, ML Web, that also make websites easy to talk to AIs and for them to read what's happening on the AI. So there will be much more integration between different products, and that also will force them to provide this kind of technology. So people will be maybe interacting with your website through their chatbot on the computer, maybe not even using a web browser. And we have already new web browsers that are AI native. And at the end, that's a challenge, because when you have AI able to create custom e-commerce website from the scratch with 2 prompts, that is very adaptable to your specific needs, that will change. Currently at Cieden, we are considering switching from our existing CMS system to custom built with AI, because it looks like more and more viable. Why would we need all these complex, bulky setups if we can much easier and faster create pages that we will actually allow?
Yeah, with the e-commerce, I also have some experience helping these e-commerce. I think large company like Shopify, Wix, they're built on the assumption that you need a CMS, you need a management system. With Gen UI, what you need is essentially a knowledge base. So with them, I think they will do something eventually, but it won't come that fast. There are lots of opportunity for smaller company that's much more nimble and much more agile to push out solutions that the industry has not seen before. We actually work with a few e-commerce store are pretty big to help with their two things. One is when we talk about generative UI, you have to tie that into an experience or an outcome, right? Like so we are helping e-commerce to understand what's the ideal outcome, what's the experience you want to provide, and then through that building out their gen web kind of experience, generative web experience. But this type of personalization and customization, I don't think Shopify would offer, like at least in the foreseeable future. It's very hard to scale, and we don't have a good solution to scale yet. So lots of it is unknown, but I think these kind of new paradigm would give lots of startup new opportunity that you are able to do it at a smaller scale and with company and people who are more risk tolerant, more AI open to AI idea. So that gives the opportunity. In terms of whether eventually they will do it, I think some of them will eventually have some form of offering for that personalized shopping experience.
All right. Thank you so much. We are kinda almost done with this, but in this last 2 minutes, maybe one of you have a question to another one. Khyati?
Yeah, sure. While you were talking, how I just had this question for you. So when you're rolling out these Gen UI solutions to the customers, so just like initial AI hype, like there was a lot of excitement, but what about the readiness? Are the customers that you are selling to are they ready to consume this Gen UI concept, or are you facing any challenges around that?
Um,
Yeah, I think there are certain people are not open to it. It's always the technology adoption curve. There's like very early adopter, then there's early majority, then there's late majority. Again, our customer are not these like majority. They are just like 10% or 5% of the company who are early adopter of AI. Again, like we don't want to target all the spectrum because that's the wrong audience for us. So in general, like we don't face actually lots of pushback. The result has been pretty good. Like people are like wowed by it, and they start see like why this matters. Um, but it comes to down to the real question is, can we offer more business value than traditional conversational UI? Right? Like at the end of the day, if this is a superior experience, it should generate superior result. So we are continuously iterating on the offering and using the latest AI as soon as possible to see whether we are A/B testing against our previous UI, whether we are offering a better solution than before. So at the end of the day, that's what really matters.
Yeah, I would add from our experience, we had requests for Gen AI, UI, chatbot, and everything like from the beginning of ChatGPT. And when actually what was actually the trigger when people seen that similar solution works for their competitors, and they did some research. Wow, our competitor is using this tool. Now we need it, and everybody waits to see the proof that it works. When they see it works for somebody, there are cases, and you need like at least 6 months of production environment to see that it actually works. But obviously, previous generation, like what we had more than a year ago, most of the chatbots were pretty easy to overload their context window, and like we had feedback that some people were using that as a free chat GPT because after a few messages you could ask it whatever you wanted and it will reply for all the questions. But I believe that everybody agrees that it's solved now. So they are reliable tools, and that now there is a next phase when people actually see what works, what doesn't work, and we have the phase of stable growth, and then more and more people are using these tools.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Khyati, for the question. Thank you, Jakub, for the question. So we covered 8 questions, one of them from the audience, one of them from the speaker. We had one tech fail from me. So I think we are good to finish this panel discussion. Thank you so much, Hao, Khyati, and Yuriy, for your time, for joining. Thank you, each and everyone in the audience, for joining, listening, asking questions, interacting in chat. And have a nice evening, day, night, depending on your time zone. Thank you again.
Thank you, Alina. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank
Alina.
for
Thank you.
organizing.